So if you're dealing with something that is bringing you depression or anxiety, and you may try to meditate it away or meditate yourself into neutrality, but really you actually need to be moving. Like, line where is the line for actually like trusting in everything that is happening or taking deeper control?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. So this is the tricky part of understanding. It's called non-doership in
Mm-hmm.
non-duality. Non-doership means there is no personal doer of actions. As the Buddha said, events happen and deeds are done, but there is no individual doer thereof. Meaning everything that happens is the power of all of life happening. There's no isolated person that acts against life or in opposition to life. Nothing can happen outside of life's will because life is all that exists. So it's never in contradiction of its own self, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So a way I can paint this in an analogy would be, imagine how much biologists could understand about any species of animal if they could only study the animal like floating in space in a vacuum with absolutely no environment. And that's the only way they could ever study any animal. How much could we really know about animals? Virtually nothing, almost nothing, because that animal really is an extension of the environment. The animal is like what the environment is doing. It's created from the environment and depends on the environment every
Yeah.
second of its existence. So you really can't isolate anything from its environment. In that same way, we are our environment, life, our whole life circumstance is also us. So the message that you're not in control doesn't mean there is nothing that's in control. It means the individual person, the idea I have of me, I am this body, this character, blah, blah, blah. That person isn't in control, just like an animal is not separate from its environment. Everything the animal does is in response to its environment. And likewise, everything we do is in response to the universe. So it's actually a zooming out of my sense of self and looking at myself from a grander point of view, a higher point of view, and seeing that actually everything that happens is ultimately my will, but me, life, me, the universe, not me, the little person. And so when a painful thing comes up, you say, well, how do I know I'm not just going to bypass that and whatever? Well, if I understand the message truthfully, then if energy is coming up to be healed, then life wants to heal it. So you meet
Mm-hmm.
it directly, you forgive it, you do all
Oh,
the normal stuff, but you do it understanding that this is the universe knowing itself. It's not
yes.
like a person who can choose or not choose whether to do that, because really the person's just kind of an accumulation of their karma. So if somebody is not self-aware enough yet to understand that like I'm a soul on an individual journey to learn these lessons and heal my wounds, if they don't know that, then guess what? They're going to keep bypassing all of their pain and keep going to the bar every weekend and all that stuff because that's all they know. Until higher awareness dawns and opens in them, they can't make a better decision. So it's like, are they choosing to bypass rather than to heal? Not really. They think that they're choosing something, but they're actually just operating on their own karma. So when we whittle it down to the individual, there's no individual control apart from life. But the good news is you are life, right? You just have to realize that you are.
So it's almost healing for the collective, essentially, healing for the universe. Like the universe is healing through you, the universe is moving through you. That's what I'm picking up from what you're saying. So instead of personalizing so deeply the pain that we're going through, it's also an understanding of this is life trying to move through us.
Yeah, that's another great point you're making, that when we understand this message, we also understand that none of our problems are actually personal problems. Whether it's a breakup, abuse, trauma, it doesn't matter. Everything you are going through in your life is really just an archetype that millions and millions and millions of people before you have worked through those same exact catalysts. And millions of people right now are working through the same pain and suffering that you're working through. So actually, none of your problems are really your problems. You know what I mean? We just personalize them in our head, but this is a story that's been told trillions of times before. So you're right in that when we see it, we are actually healing the collective itself, in that every person, individual person who transcends that specific catalyst, like abuse from the past, rejection, abandonment, whatever it is, when I heal it in myself, I erase a little bit more of it from the whole collective. And in a sense, I actually make it a little bit more vibrationally possible for everyone else to transcend it. Because I've just like taken a little bit more weight out of that collective trauma, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. And there's two things that I want to touch on. One of them is you talk a lot about how energy spirals upward. And so when that energy of the universe is moving through us, when we get, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, like depression or anxiety or these manifestations of dis-ease, it's when we hold the energy, we don't allow it to continue to move through us. And that's when we hold it, is when we continue to personalize it as this is only happening to me.
Well said.
The other thing that don't slip through my mind is that because we are a part of the entire system that we're in, do we sometimes need to move from that system? Or is that going to follow us everywhere we go? You know, because sometimes we hear people saying, I am people. I'm like, I need to move to an island. I need to move here. I need to move here. And then a lot of this stuff will be solved. Maybe some of it will, but how true is that?
You mean like in terms of systemic corruption and stuff?
Yeah. So it's like those, if we are a part of the system that we're in, we can relieve some of the pain that we're going through, or can we relieve some of the pain that we're going through by placing ourselves into another system? Or are these some of the pains that we need to go through regardless of where we are because of the karmic destiny that we have?
Yeah.
Lots of things I just threw your way.
It's a tough question, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's different ways to look at this, but we're all ultimately connected, as you pointed out. And so that means there really isn't such a thing as escaping anything, because you could almost look at all of humanity as one being. And so those archetypes of abuse, trauma, abandonment, loneliness, these are archetypes that the human race, the human species is currently dealing with in itself and is evolving through. So it works that way with, every system that humans make, because every system we make is an outgrowth of us, is an extension of us. Our politics, our economics, our governments, our medicine, you name it. And so these same problems show up in every system of humanity. Looking at government, for an example, the governments is like the ego of the collective consciousness, because it's an entity that says, I am Lord of you. I rule over you. You answer to me. I tell you what to do. I'm your boss. You're my servant. And if you don't do what it wants, it will take control from you very violently. Well, that's what our mind does to us, right? If we don't do what the ego wants, it's going to try to punish us and make you feel guilty, make you feel shameful for not doing what it wanted. Well, that's a control tactic. And we see that through oppressive governments from all of history. So in the same way that we transcend our ego individually, we will have to transcend these tyrannical governments that currently rule this planet in the same way collectively. So how do we do that, right? Well, how do I transcend my ego? First, I stop giving it power. I stop believing that it has any power over me. And I just let it be like noise in the background. But I don't cooperate with it anymore. I don't give it my energy anymore. I just let it be there. I don't make it an enemy or something, but I just understand what it wants from me and that I don't want what it wants from me. That's how we begin to transcend, make the split from I am the ego versus I am something more transcendent than this. I am earlier than ego. So collectively, we have to stop thinking that the government actually has power over us or should have power over us, or that we should listen to anything they have to say. Secondly, we have to realize our inherent oneness. Like if I'm all disconnected from these parts of myself, good luck transcending ego. Ego will use all those divided parts to further divide me from myself. All those divided parts of me will be at war with each other. My guilty self hates my prideful self, and on and on and on and on. So until I love all parts of me, ego can weaponize those individual components. And isn't that what oppressive governments love to do?
Mm-hmm.
They love to divide their population, get them hating each other, fighting each other. And then they can just, like puppets on a string, just pull the strings whichever way they want. The bad guy's over there, and everyone runs over there. Oh, they're over here. They run over there. And they're just picking your pockets every second while you're not looking. So we have to become one with each other as humanity. We have to absolutely refuse to be divided over any issue whatsoever. And until that happens, we're going to keep seeing the same things. So I think humanity right now, after this whole picture I've painted, we can see is at this very juncture, right, where we are learning these tough lessons. We're experiencing the consequences of not learning them. And ultimately, right, that's what wakes us up to the importance of the lesson itself.
So running away, moving to another place, or thinking that your piece is going to be in Bali or Hawaii or one of the, is almost like we can't outrun the system. This is not what we need right now. Is not beyond our own peace. We need collective peace. So from wherever you are right now, you start there, and you can achieve personal freedom from the depression, from the anxiety, from the things that are weighing you down, when you start to see that the universe is healing itself through you. So having practices that allow us to let the energy move, because I think I love what you said about, and I want you to speak about this, is the energy spiraling upwards is so much of within myself, when I find myself having anxiety or falling into a depression, it is because I have taken one thought and I have followed it, and I've gone in like sideways into a loophole with it, instead of like having that thought and then just like, okay, there's the thought, and allowing it to finish its way through.
Yeah. Being the awareness.
Yeah.
So I think to your question about like, can we leave a certain area if we're not in resonance with it? I think it's a nuanced question, because there's definitely something to be said for staying and fighting for where you live and trying to change the laws and systems to become more unified and loving and all that. And I think we should definitely be in that mindset. But there's also something to be said for honoring the collective consciousness. And, if you're living somewhere that's getting really radicalized, that the governments of that city and state are being very, very oppressive, taking away freedoms, and everyone's like cheering it on, like, yeah, take our freedoms, and you're not in resonance with that, then you might say, okay, I'm going to honor the collective here and say, this is what they want. So that's valid. You guys can have this oppressive regime that you want. I'm going to move somewhere that's in alignment with my values, but let's always still be in the mindset that we are trying to heal the planet, not escape something. And I think a lot of times, I have tons of friends who've done this. They just want to get out of America or Australia or wherever they think they're being oppressed, and go to Costa Rica or Bali. And it's just a very escapist mentality, which again, doesn't mean you shouldn't move there, but let's move there still with the mindset of, how do I play a part in humanity's healing still? How can I make change? I think if we keep that vibration in our heart, then we're staying joined with humanity and love and service to others. And the mentality of like, everyone here's crazy and nuts, screw them all, I want to go somewhere I can be alone and be left alone. That can still be ego, right? Having this kind of separation mindset. And I think that's what we have to be careful of.
Yeah, definitely. Because there is something to be said for, if you are just an incredibly open and sensitive person living in a very dense city,
right,
you cannot tap into yourself to help the collective. So maybe you do need to get out. But if you get out because you're like, fuck everyone, I need to be in my little cave and just like get my own peace, you can do that for a little bit until maybe you get back to a level playing field. But that ultimately is not going to be the answer, because as you know, I think we know nothing at the end of the day, but at the same time, what we think we know is that this is really moving towards just universal healing, collective healing.
Yeah. And I think if you incarnated on this planet at this point in time, like if you're aware of the world you live in now, the amount of corruption and stuff that's actually enslaving this planet, if you're aware of this stuff and you're alive today, your soul obviously came here to be of service to this planet at this time. This is like the most critical junction of human history right now. So let me
Okay,
not
yes.
abandon that soul journey, that soul mission. I don't want to do that, right? I want to fulfill the purpose I came here for. And yes, we all have individual destinies and giftings and stuff, but like the overlying purpose of any one of us being here is to help this planet evolve right now and make it through this transition.